Let me start recording. So today we're gonna discuss about annotations. Okay, annotations. So this is JDK 1.5 future, right? JDK 1.5 future. So we can we can think like annotations are alternative for XMLs, right? XMLs, JSONs, right? JSONs or any other metadata configuration technology. Okay. So before Java introduces annotations. Yeah. So I'm done with uh, but taking a class, right? I mean, teaching something, right? I'm just back to session. Are we back? Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Sunil.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so before JDK 1.5, these annotations, used to have this XML configuration. If you open any project which implements before 2000, right, like 1990s or 1995s or early days of 2000s, to write one servlet, right, to write at least one servlet to hit one to send one HTTP request and get response hi or say hello, we need to write minimum one XML file. Minimum. In some projects, we used to write like more than one or two XML files. Right? It's such a huge, complicated thing. As a Java guy, you must know what is XML language, right? And what are all the rules they must we must follow to write XML configuration, right? So you must know all those things. And another biggest challenge is XML configuration, especially with XML configuration. Okay, so so Java cannot understand what is that XML configuration, right? Any a small typo mistake also, small typo mistake also. What you gonna see when you are if you do a small typo mistake and you run your Java application, right? What is the output you're gonna get?
Error message.
Right,
Exception.
exception, right? Because Java cannot understand and it can't show any compilation error. So it will try to load the configuration. While loading the configuration, it will identify the type of mistakes and it will throw an exception, right? So we wrote some configuration and there is some mistake, and that might be any kind of mistake, typo mistake or some underscore or some value which we are passing, right? Might be like some parameter we may have like port, right? What is the allowed value for port? We're supposed to pass an integer, right? Like something like 8080 by 1990. So the expected value we are passing as an integer, but as it an XML, you can pass a string also, right? So port can be something like A, B, C, D. Yeah, there won't be any compilation error, but you will get a runtime exception, right? While you're starting your application, you will get an exception, right? So these kind of challenges we have with an XML configuration. And as we are Java guys, so if you learn annotations, you no need to you don't need to spend extra time to write your configuration because annotations are Java driven. We write annotations in Java. They are pure Java basic. And if you do any kind of mistake, right? For example, port is an integer. You are trying to pass a string, then your code will not be compiled. So it is a compilation error instead of an exception, right? So obviously the projects prefer if it is a compilation error. I mean, usually people prefer that because instead of getting an exception at runtime, it is better to get a compilation at your while writing your code itself or while compiling your project in Jenkins pipeline or some other pipeline. Right? So it is always better to get a compilation error instead of getting an exception. So that is one of the biggest benefit we're gonna get to jump into these annotations. And when we started learning about Spring, right? Spring, it's nothing new. They are also into the market like more than 15 years. Right? They are also into the market like more than 15 years. When Spring introduced into the world, right? Like up to 4 5 years, they were using only XML configuration, right? They were using only XML configuration. As Java introduced annotations, they slowly started migrating into annotations, right? Now, like till Spring 2.5, version 2.5, It's full of XML based configuration. From Spring 2.5 onwards, they started adopting annotations. Now we are Spring 5.0, some place 5.2.1. What is the latest? But okay, let's mark it as 5.0 plus, right? 5 plus. So now it's a full of annotations, zero XML. Right? It's full of annotations in Java configuration. Now they almost kind of made, right? XML configuration can be fully avoided without writing a one line of XML configuration. You can write your Spring application, Spring Boot application. Okay, so if you see the older versions of Spring applications, you might look in, like you might see some pure XML configurations, right? In between, if you see like any Spring application which is from Spring 2.5 to 4.0 till 4.0, it's like it's a mix of annotations and XML configuration. But with the latest versions of Spring, right? Spring 5, where the Spring started supporting JDK 1.8 fully, now it's full of annotations and Java configuration. We have very, I mean, we no need to use XML at all. Right? You no need to use XML tag also, one XML tag also, not required to write any Spring application. Okay, configuration with XML configuration, fully optional. But to have a backward compatibility, right? The older versions of Spring, so to have that backward compatibility, still supporting XML configuration, still it's supporting with the latest version also. Maybe we don't know. Maybe in the future they may start the support also, and they may do repair also. We don't know, but yeah, as we need a backward compatibility, so Spring is still supporting it, but we can do the things without writing a one line of XML configuration also. Okay, so with annotations, the developer lives becomes pretty easy, and in terms of project, we're gonna get benefit, right? Instead of getting exceptions, you can get the compilers, you can get the compilers, compilation errors. Okay, so that is what is the benefit we're going to get. So let's see how to write an annotation. Actually, let's see how exactly this annotation looks like. Okay, so we know interface, right? Already we know interface. Okay, so yeah, this syntax, public interface, yeah, a or else public interface, runnable, clonable, serializable, right? All are able, right? Yeah, public interface runnable, void run. This is we already know, right? This is there since the Java born, JDK 1.0 onwards. So to write an annotation, like for example, I want to write a runnable annotation. Okay, the only change you notice is just before this interface, you have to add eth character. Okay, wherever you see eth interface, which means that is an annotation. Okay, it's a blind indication in Java. It's a blind indication. Wherever you see eth character, which means that is an annotation. So as we are familiar with writing interfaces, so we are, you can say, okay, we are still familiar with writing annotations also. There is nothing new. What you have to do extra is just you have to use it just before interface, and whenever you want to use this runnable, you have to use it run, it run. Okay, so this it indicates this is an annotation. This is an annotation. Okay, we will see how JVM will understand, okay, what is this annotation and what is the use of this annotation. While we are processing, we will come to know like how this runnable is going to be used at, at, in any project or in any application. Okay, so to write an interface in Java, use et character. Okay, but as how we are talking, there are few benefits we're going to get with annotation. There are few drawbacks also we have, right? We have few benefits with an XML. What is the biggest benefit with an XML? Why people prefer, still there are few applications they might be writing an XML configuration. What is the biggest benefit of writing an XML configuration? Can somebody guess?
You have a schema for XML?
No, schema validation you can do with the compiler validation also, right? Validation wise, both are same. Even annotations are better than XML schemas. No,
It's easy to change without touching the code, and we don't need to build and deploy it in it.
exactly. So we gonna separate our configuration from our application, right? If it is an XML file, you can put it in anywhere, right? You can put it in any class path, and it dynamically you change, right? For example, uh, the DB usernames and passwords, right? They may get changed like every 45 days, right? DB username and password, they may get changed like every 45 days. For example, if you use an annotation in, if you pass username and password using annotation, when there is a password change happens or username change happens, how to, again, you have to do modifications in your code and you have to recompile and rebuild unwanted drop or unwanted drop you have to, right? So it is costliest effect, right? Like dropping the code in the production is not a cheap thing. It is little, very, very cost effective, right? Because we will have some downtime, right? So, and we also have to take too much risk, right? Dropping the code is not that much happy, like how we are writing the code. That something breaks, then your application will be down for some time, then your business will go down for some time. Right? So it's a huge risk dropping the code again and again and again. So that is the reason why we prefer XML configurations. If it is an XML configuration, it is just a matter of modifying that XML file and redeploying the application, right? Redeploying the application. Again, application will reload that XML file. So you don't need to send any new code. With the existing application itself, you do modify a file in the server, right? The production server, and redeploy. Redeploy can be done. Usually all production servers will be recycled every day. Like they prefer some downtime, like morning, early morning, like 3 a.m. EST, something like that. They choose some very minute inflow, right? Whenever the application will get very less input, that time they go for recycling the servers like on daily basis or weekly basis. And that time they do like a set, right? We may have 10 servers or 20 servers. They don't do 20 servers at a time. They do five first and they do five next and they do five next. So we don't have any downtime. So with server recycles, we can still achieve without downtime. We can deploy our changes, right? So that is why the reason why the world is still using this XML configuration, because the configuration can be separated from our application. So without redeploying the code, still we can bring our applications. I mean, we can do the changes in our application. But anyway, this is one approach. You can use database also, right? You can use database or any file, any text file, or now in microservices, especially with respect to microservices. Now we are fully focusing on more deployments, right? If any change comes, as we are in the most competitive world, right? So before our competitor go and introduce that feature, like usually business is focusing, right? They want to be first in the market. So we want to be more deployments. And so that is the reason why we are choosing continuous integration, continuous deployment, right? CI/CD. So you do change the code and checking, and automatically code will be built and will be dropped in dev environment. You go and validate it, then get the access, then permission, then next Jenkins job will run and will deploy the code in SID. And there might be some automation test cases will be there. It will run and validate it. Then it will, one more job will be triggered, like pre-production. There are some more test cases. Then the code will be moved into the production. So now we are fully focusing on more deployments. So that is the reason why we have started using this XML configuration. Less, right? We are okay with the Java configuration also these days, just because of this microservices. Okay, yeah. So this is what is the benefit we're gonna get if you use XMLs. But yeah, as we are okay with multiple deployments, we are okay with using annotations also. Yeah. So Java itself has few predefined annotations like override, right? Override. Um, it is it, uh, um, it deprecated, okay, deprecated, and it suppress warnings, okay, suppress warnings like that. There are few um, predefined annotations are present inside Java. So first let's look into them. Okay, then we will see how to write our own custom annotation. Okay, so to see the Java predefined annotations, so the entire Java classes will be present inside rt.java. Okay, rt.java. Yeah, so all the predefined annotations are present inside java.lang package. Okay. Java.lang package, yes. Okay, so here you could see some kind of annotations at deprecated, right? What is the classification between the annotations and other classes? It's going to have at, right? At interface deprecated. See, at functional interface, right? This is another annotation which introduced with JDK 1.8, and at to override, at suppress warnings. Okay, so these are the custom annotations which are available in JDK, Java core, right? In Java core. Okay. So these are the annotations which are already written, but to write any annotations we need to pass some configuration information, right? To write any annotation we need to pass some kind of configuration information. So look at this: at documented, at retention, at target. So if you open any annotation, so these are common: at documented, at retention, at target, right? So this will always present. Okay, so we will look into these annotations also, why we need these annotations and what is the use of these annotations. But before that, I just would like to spend few minutes on this predefined annotations. Okay, for example, at override. What is the use of at override? Okay, so polymorphism in Java, right? There are two ways: static binding or dynamic binding, right? Which is static polymorphism, dynamic polymorphism. What is the static polymorphism?
Method overloaded.
Yes, right. Method override, right? So sorry, overload, right? Method overload. So that is a static polymorphism. When you go for dynamic polymorphism, then we go for override, right? Override. So there are certain rules we have to follow to override a method in the Java, right? For example, public, public, yeah, mm, public, okay, class, class. Uh, let's see very basic example, class A, and we have a method public void everyone. Or else to make it entertain, let's change this to Amitabh, right? Amitabh. Okay, so he has a feature called active, right? He has a feature called active. So who is the child of Amitabh? Public class Abhishek, right? Abhishek. Yeah, so we have a class called Abhishek. So now Abhishek wants to override, right? Abhishek wants to override acting of Amitabh, right? So he can't do that, right? He can't do that blindly in Java. There are certain rules we have to follow to override any method, any method. So what is the first rule? If the method scope access modifier is public, right? Then either you have to use the same scope or you have to increase, not to decrease. For example, if I do write like this, void acting, right? Void acting. What will happen? You will get a compilation error saying that, okay, the scope should be increased, right? The scope should be increased. So when the parent class scope is public, then you must override with public only. If the parent is default, yes, you can make it default, or you can make it public, or you can make it protected also. Okay, anything it's fine. If the parent method scope is default, then you can override it as public, or you can override as default, or you can override as protected also. That is still fine. Okay, so the method scope should be same or increased, not to be decreased, not to be decreased. Okay, then what about private methods? If the parent has a private method,
Private method cannot be overridden.
exactly. For private methods, private fields, if anything is private, scope is up to the class only, up to that class only. So one, if it is a private, then we cannot override the any private method. So if you write, if you see something like this is not override concept. This is what every class, right? Amitabh has its own acting, Abhishek has its own acting, right? So there are two individual methods. These two are two individual methods, so there is no relationship, right? For private methods, the overriding concept is not applicable. So this looks okay, this looks okay, but this is not called as override, right? Override act works only for default methods, protected methods, and public methods. And when you see default, protected, public, make sure you properly override the scope. Okay, scope should be same or increased, right? We are done with scope. Then the next thing is return type. Return type, right? Return type.
Sunil extends Amitabh. We have to write.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, extends Amitabh. Okay, extends Amitabh. Yeah, then only, yeah, we can override. Yeah, that is the first rule. And the second rule, yeah, the second rule is scope, and the third rule is return time, right? So when you are trying to override any method, you must return the same type or child type, right? Same type means if the parent is void, then child also should be void. If the parent is object, then you can return any child type, right? String, integer, right? Anything you can. If the parent type is number, then child should be, for example, if the parent is number and child is string, then we will get a compilation error saying that the return type should be matched. Return type should be matched. But the parent type return, you can define integer because integer is the child, right? You can return the same type or the child type. So that's what we call it as covariant, right? You can return the same type or the child type, then it is fine. Okay, but don't return other type. So if your parent returning number and you are trying to return a string, then you will get a compilation error. So you have to be very careful with the return types also, let's go with the void. So if the parent is void, then child also should be void. Okay, and the name of the method, it's very, you have to be very very careful. Okay, if you do a small mistake, right? Small mistake, extra character, underscore, right? Some number you are using extra, then these two are not overriding, right? This is not overriding. Okay, Java will consider acting is on one method and actings is in another method. So this is not called as override. Then the name of the method should be same. Name of the method should be same. And when it is coming to arguments, what type of arguments the parent takes, right? If parent takes two arguments, right, then child also should take two arguments only. You cannot skip. Okay, you cannot skip. If you try to change the argument, then it will not be considered as more dynamic binding or method overriding. It will be considered as static polymorphism, overloading. Okay, so the argument, number of arguments should match. Argument types also should match. Argument types also should match. Okay, that is the fourth rule. And the last rule is if the parent is throwing any checked exception. Okay, there is a little confusion with respect to the checked exception. Okay, if the parent is throwing some exception, the child has to throw the same type or child type. Okay, if the parent is throwing some checked exception, either you have to throw the same type, right? Or the child. For example, if the parent is throwing IO exception and you are trying to throw class not found exception, then you will get an compilation error, right? You will get a compilation error. So there are so many rules, right? Just a simple override. Here it is printing system.out.println 1990 movies. Okay, yeah, 1990 movies, and he might print, okay, system.out.println 2000 movies. Okay, 2000 movies. Maybe his daughter, right? I don't know her name. Maybe his daughter, public class. Yeah, if I go Google, I can get it. Okay, maybe like yeah, we will give name as ABC and extends, right? Now Abhishek, right? Abhishek daughter, maybe she act in movies in the future, right? So again, she has to remember all these rules and regulations, and it will be marked like 20, 20 not 20, 20, 40 or something, right? Yeah. So she will be coming into the movies like in 2040s or 2030s. Yeah. So she has to remember all these rules, right? Simple override. How many rules we need to remember? If you do a small mistake, like a small typo character, just underscore here, then it is not override. This is a different method, right? So then Java will consider, oh, you are not overriding Abhishek parent, you are writing your own active, right? No. So our intention is not that. Our intention is override only, but we did some mistake. We did some mistake. Okay. So there is no intimation, right? There is no intimation. So what Java is saying, okay, as a developer, you need to remember all the rules and regulations to override a simple method. Simple method. So you have to remember the scope. You have to remember the scope rule. You have to remember void, return type. You have to remember the method name should be same. Number of arguments should be same. Argument type should be same. For example, you first pass string and second pass integer. This is also mistake, right? So you have to remember the uh, places also, and if the parent is throwing some checked exception, either you have to throw the same or child, you're not supposed to throw some other exception, right? There are so many rules we need to remember, right? So from JDK 1.5 onwards, right, you don't need to remember all these rules. Okay, you directly just ignore about it, right? If you do add underscore or one, whatever it is, okay. But our final intention is overriding parent class method, right? Our final intention is overriding parent class method. So then mark this method with the at override annotation, at override annotation. Then compiler will take care about it. Okay, then compiler will take care about this all these rules and regulations, right? So if you do something like this, yeah, okay, those IO exception. Yeah, but I did a small mistake. What was that? Parent is public method. I am not making it public. Then compiler will immediately. You are not overriding properly, right? What should we do? We should add public, right? If you are doing some typo mistake, you may have such a big method name and you are doing a small typo mistake. Then the compiler will show an hey, your method override is not proper. Please check the method name, right? So you get some kind of assistance, right? You don't need to remember all the rules. You just try to override it. You just try to override it. If is there any problem, then compiler will notify you. Okay, is there any problem, then compiler will notify you. So to make sure we follow all the rules and regulations to override a particular method in Java, we use at override, at override, and this has to be overridden only. If you try to keep any method which is not in the parent, for example, parent has a method called m1 and you are writing a method called m2 and you are trying to keep this override method, then compiler will throw an error saying that there is no method m2 present in the parent. There is no method m2 present in the parent, right? Because override annotation has to be kept on a method where we are trying to override a parent methods. Then that method should present on the parent class. If that method is not present on the parent class, then you will get error. So any kind of rule with respect to overriding, then you will get a compiler assistance. You don't need to remember any rules. You don't need to remember any rules. Just simply annotate with a to override. Then compiler will make sure that you are overriding that method properly. If you do any kind of mistake, then compiler will show an error. Okay, so that is what is the use with the at override. At override. Okay, so we also have at deprecated. At deprecated. So if any method, any class, right, any interface are not suggestible to use, for example, date class, right? We have a date class in java.util, right? So you can create a date class using string parameters like this also, int, year, month, right? So, but this is not suggestible. You can still use, but when you try to use, you will get a warning like the code will be straightened like this. Okay. So if any method, any class, right, any variable is not suggestible to use, is not suggestible to use in the future, right? Then we can mark that as deprecated. So this got deprecated when? since Java 1.1 onwards, right? Java not suggesting to use this constructor at all. Java not suggesting to use constructor. So they will specify, okay, instead of using this constructor, use calendar.set, okay, or Gregorian calendar, right? So instead of using this, you have to use this, right? Anything you want to use in your code, right? Something you wrote a method and you felt, okay, this is not a proper way of doing things. Then you wrote another method which gives a better performance, better results, right? Then you ask people to use that, but we can't delete that method, old method, because if you delete the old method, we don't know where and all it will break. So we will mark that as deprecated, right? We will give us some kind of intimation. Hey, boss, this is not no more useful, right? This method is no more useful. If you want to the same kind of benefits you get by using some other method, right? So you have to specify replace by also. Replace by, so this code has to be replaced with some other, okay? So this is also one of the most commonly used annotation in Java. At override, yes, as developers we use most of the times. At a deprecated, yes, we do use for sometimes. The intention is we are just indicating them, right? Whoever is going to use this method, constructor, class, right? We just inform, okay, this is not recommended approach. Just go ahead and use this, right? So it doesn't mean that you cannot use it. You can use, but whenever you are using, you will get a deprecated warning. Okay, you will get a deprecated warning on your code. Okay, that is what you use with the deprecated. Okay, we know already what is this at functional interface, right? You know already this at functional interface. Okay. Yeah, surprise warning also a bit useful with respect to, like, for example, you know this, right? Generics concept in JDK 1.5. JDK 1.5 generics are introduced. But what about the code before JDK 1.5? Right, in JDK 1, before JDK 1.5, we have a code something like this, right? List equals to new array list. This is JDK 1.5. So we don't have any generics before JDK 1.5. JDK 1.5, we have something like this, right? List of string list equals to new array. Okay. This got improvised a bit in JDK 1.7. Okay, the same concept got changed a bit in JDK 1.7, something like this. If you specify what type of data you're going to store at left hand side, right hand side, this is completely optional. Okay, so right hand side you can just put open close arrows, right? Less than, greater than, still it is fine. Okay, this is JDK 1.7. Right? But okay, but we need to understand it suppress warnings. Okay, let's focus on JDK 1.5. Okay, so for example, you wrote some code with when we have market, like when we have JDK 1.4 in the market. Later you upgraded your version, JDK version to 1.5. Then from JDK 1.5 onwards, the same code, whatever you wrote here, will show a warning, right? What warning it will show? This is not a generic type, right? This is not a generic type. Then you will get a warning, right? So just because we are upgrading our background JDK, we can't rewrite our entire code and we can't go and change our old code to generics, right? So anything, something warning you are getting it, right? That warning can be suppressed. That warning can be suppressed, right? Unchecked version. What you have to use? Unchecked version. Or no, I think raw types. Yeah, I think you have to use raw types. Okay. Sometimes you get some class cast warnings, right? That can be avoided by using checked casts or unchecked casts, something like that. Okay. So any warning which can be avoided by using at suppressed warnings, at suppressed warning. Even in the last example we saw, right? Date deprecated. You get a warning, right? This is the deprecated code. So to avoid that warning, you can use this, right? At suppress warnings, unchecked conversion, something like that. There is some string you have to use with suppress warnings. Then that warning can be avoided. That warning can be removed from your IDE. So let's see one example with all this. Already we saw a couple of times, right? Override. Where we saw the override? In our first example, calculator. Interface demo function, yeah, calculator, right? So this is an interface. So we provided implementation for calculator, right? using calculator IMPL. So here you can add at override. Okay, and you try to do any kind of mistake, you will get an error immediately. Right? The method square one of calculator IMPL must override or implement of super. Okay, so this says that okay, you can create this method square one in the calculator interface or remove it to override. So when you remove it to override, which means you are not overriding. Our intention is I don't want to override, I am writing a new method. So if you when you mark it to override, then compiler will make sure that all the rules you're properly following. If you remove this public, then compiler will show an error. Right? Yeah, you cannot reduce the visibility, right? Cannot reduce the visibility. How to? It has to be same, or it has to be increased, right? So any kind of rule, right? If we have try to change the return type, see, we will get an error. Right? The return type is incompatible with calculator. You know, if I remove this annotation, no error, right? If I remove this annotation, no error, right? 1 second. Okay. With respect to I'm using interface, that's why we are saying that warning. If I change it to class, right? Class extend, then we don't get warning also. If I change, whenever we are working with interfaces, then you can change something like this, right? With we can't play with the return types, but you can play with the parameters, right? Parameters. So what it will consider? It will consider, okay, you are writing another method with specific to overload. Still we are not overriding parent class method. Still we are not overriding parent class method. So whenever you try to override any method, right, interfaces, subtract classes or custom classes, if your intention is override, it is better, it is a good programming practice to annotate that method with it overrides. Then compiler will make sure that you follow all the rules and regulations properly. Okay, this is the perfect overriding. If there is for sure, we overrided square method for 100% with all rules and regulations followed. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see one example with deprecated. Okay. Let's go to annotations itself. Okay. We have test one. Where is the main class? Let me write a main class. Main class. Okay. Write a main method. So inside that, try to create a date object. Date equals to new date. Okay. See, this can be used. Yes, still you can use 2020 and the month is 04 and the date is 2019. Okay. Still you can use this, but you will get a warning, right? See, there is some strike, right? The constructor date int is deprecated. So you got some kind of warning here, right? Multiple mark, right? So let's print this date. Then you will get only one error, right? Let's print this date. There won't be any problem. Output will come as expected. But it is not a good programming practice to use duplicated functionality. Okay, you still get the same output, but we got a warning. Right? The constructor date int right, was deprecated. So we can fix this issue. We can fix this issue by adding at suppress warnings. At suppress warnings. Okay, you can add at variable level or you can add at method level. So now that warning will be. Now that warning is gone. Right now that warning is. So the suppress warning we use to suppress the warnings. So it can be any kind of warning. It can be local variable is not used. For example, if I don't use this date, right? For example, here we are printing the date, but if I don't print the date, then I will get another warning saying that okay, local variable date is not used. Okay, you can use unused. Okay, and this can be a comma separated also. This can be a comma separated also in an array. You can use multiple warnings, suppress warnings in one place. Okay, so see that error got. Even though we are not using date, still that error warning is not coming. So suppress warnings we use to suppress the warnings. So it can be any kind of warning. It can be local variable not used, deprecated. So used are some raw type, right? For example, in JDK 1.4, if you write something, you used to write something like this, right? Equals to new array list. But this is not allowed. I mean, this is not a good programming practice with respect to JDK 1.5 or later versions, right? This is not a good programming. So whenever you define collection, it must supposed to be a generic version. Supposed to be a generic collections only we have to use, right? Yeah, sis, we got an error, right? So this is a raw type, right? This list is raw type. So still this can be fixed, comma. Let me copy from raw types. I think this is not the value. Let's get it from compiler. Okay. Yeah, raw type R small, T small, right? Okay. See that warning also gone. So suppress warning is used only to suppress the warnings. So it cannot help anything with annotations. Compiler errors. Okay. So these are the predefined annotation. We know already what is functional interface. Why do we use? We already discussed it. So this is what is used with the predefined annotations in Java. Once we jump into Spring, you like a you see like annotations rainfall. You know, for every concept we have an annotation. It's like full of annotations rainfall. In Java we have 4 or 5, but once we jump into Spring, it's like full of annotations. Okay. Yeah. So with this, we are done with the predefined annotations in Java. Any questions till now? Okay. Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Yeah. So I know this movie will going uh, like native Telugu movie, right? Like, I mean, sorry, a native movie, like two, like 4 songs, 2 fights, right? 1 or 2 emotional scenes, like that. It is going right. No, no, not that much interesting thing, right? No suspense, no thriller. Right now, the things will change a little bit, right? Now, till now, we discussed what is there with Java. Once we jump into custom annotations, then you really feel uh, the beauty of annotations. Okay. So but before going to write our custom annotations, right? So there are few things which we need to understood. Let me open that material just a second. Okay, so these are the built-in Java annotations. Get override, get suppress, warnings, get deprecated, get functional interface. I didn't add that. Okay. Yeah. To write any custom annotations, right? Even whatever the Java wrote, they wrote it. Instead of we are writing, they are available with Java. Even these annotations also, they use these annotations. Okay, to write any annotation, we need to look into a package called uh, java.lang.annotation. So I will jump. Yeah. Okay. So just side by this package, we have another package called java.lang.annotations, right? To write any custom annotations, we need to look into this package. There are around 5 to 10 annotations are there and few interfaces are there. Okay, so to play with any annotations, this is what is the package we want to use. Okay, so let's start with retention. Okay, retention. So what this annotation will define, you know, so to write any annotation, it can be override, suppress warning, deprecated, runnable, any kind of custom annotation. Okay, so we will have this annotation for sure. Okay, this is for a mandatory kind of annotation. So if you have doubt, you can see any annotation will always have retention, right? Not only suppress warnings. Let me open functional interface, save warnings, okay? Or see every annotations, right? These two are mandatory, minimum. At retention, at target. At retention, at target. So at retention will specify this the scope of the annotation. Retention will specify the scope of the annotation. There are only three values are allowed: source, class, runtime. Source, class, runtime. So source means it's going to be used by the compiler, right? So it won't be available till JVM level, right? If you specify retention source, for example, at override. For example, at override, right? So Control Shift T. Override. Yeah. So this is a source. Source means the scope of this annotation till compiler level. So whenever JVM is actual JVM is running, so this at override annotation will not be available. So till what level you want it, you want this annotation to be available? Is this going to be used by the compiler, or is this going to be used by the JVM? Is this going to be used by the JVM? If it is anything is going to be used by the JVM, then we mostly use runtime. We mostly use runtime. And moreover, whenever we are writing custom annotations, most of the times we do use runtime only. Okay, not the source, because we can't play with the compiler, right? So mostly we do play with the JVM execution, right? With our execution, so we do use runtime in our custom annotations. Okay, so source is compiler level, runtime is JVM level. Okay, yeah. So this is what is retention. Okay, so by using retention, we will specify till what level this annotation is going to be available. Okay, then the next important is at documented. So if you want to provide any Java documentation, then we will use at documented. But this is optional. By default, it is annotations are not included in Java doc. Okay, by default, annotations are not included in Java doc. If you want to get them included, then we will use at documented. But this is completely optional. Okay, the next important annotation is target. Right, target. So these two are very, very important. Okay, at retention, we need to specify who is going to use that. Is this going to be used by the compiler, or is this going to be used by the JVM? That is what we need to specify. Then the next important annotation is at target. At target. Okay, I'll show you some code. Okay, we will get some kind of error. I'll show you some code. We will get some kind of error. You must tell me, okay, why we are getting that error. For example, I'm using at override here. Is this the correct place to use the override? See, I got an error, right? What is this error? The annotation at to override is disallowed for this location, right? This is not allowed at this location. Why?
Because the retention is compiler.
No.
No, we are not at all extending any class, and also inside the main method, I think we cannot override.
Not applicable at class level. It's applicable at method
It's a
level.
Exactly.
method level.
We can do apply override concept for the methods, right? The override concept is not applicable for methods, not for fields, variables. We cannot apply override concept. So how the compiler is knowing, okay, this is a method level annotation. I can use this method annotation at method level only, or I can use an annotation at class level only, or I can use an annotation at field level only, right? How can compiler knows? So we should instruct, right? So let's not get confused with retention and target, right? So retention is we are specifying who is going to be used. Is this going to be used by the compiler, or is this going to be used by the JVM? Okay, so that is one step. And the next step is where we are going to use this annotation. Are we going to use this annotation on top of variable, a field, or on top of a method, on top of a constructor, on top of a method, class, or on top of an interface, right? So we need to specify that, right? What are all the places this annotation is allowed? That is going to be specified by using at target annotation. At target. So at target, what it is supporting? Method, right? So this annotation can be allowed only on top of methods. If you try to put it anywhere else, compiler will throw an error, right? Compiler will throw an array. If you try to keep on top of class also, it won't allow. So this is allowed only on top of method, only on top of method. Right, only on top of. Anyway, we can't override main method, that's why we got an error. But anyway, so the override annotation is allowed only on methods. How we are specifying, right? Somewhere you need to say that, hey, this annotation has to be used on method, this annotation has to be used on class, this method has this annotation has to be used on a constructor, right? So you need to specify that. We will specify that using target annotation. So there are multiple uh, constants are available in element type target. So type means that can be kept on class or interface. When it is type, that can be kept on class, interface. Field means elements. Okay, includes enum constants also. Including enum constants also, you can apply this, right? If you specify field, then you can use that on the variables. Methods means on method declarations. Parameters, right? On method, if method takes any parameter, on that parameter you want to, and for that parameter you want to use any annotations. I hope the people who worked on the RESTful web services, right? At path variable. Okay, if you worked already, it's fine. If you don't work, okay, we will see the same in the future. Okay, at path variable, something like this, right? This we will use at method parameter level. So if you use target parameter, then that can be used at method parameter level. Constructor on constructor level, local variable, annotation type, package. On top of package also, you can keep an annotation. Okay, so there are like type parameter, type use. These are completely new. We don't use this that much frequently. Okay, so the mostly commonly used are type, field, method, parameter, constructor. Okay, the most commonly used are these five: type, field, method, parameter, constructor. So if you if you specify type, then that annotation is allowed on top of class and on top of method, on top of interface, right? So let's go to suppress warnings. You will see all this: type, field, method, parameter, constructor, local variable. So that is the reason why the suppress warning will be allowed almost all the places in the class, all the places in the class. Let's go to override. So this is allowed only on method. This is allowed only on method. Let's go to functional interface. Functional interface, that should be type, right? Only type. So it is allowed only on top of interface and class. Okay, so we will specify. So these two are mandatory. So one is who is going to be used. Is this compile time annotation or runtime annotation? Second one is at what level we have to allow this annotation. Is it to be kept on top of method? Is it to be kept on top of field? Right, on top of a constructor, on top of class, on top of interface? Those details we need to specify. It documented is completely optional, not at all. Not at all I mean mandate. Okay, but these two are mandate at retention, at a target. So similarly, we also have few more like inherited. If you wanted to apply inherited, then we use it inherited. Repeatable, like if you want to use the same annotation for multiple times, then we have to use repeatable. This is added in JDK 1. Okay, so these are all the annotations, right? Retention, documented. Okay, I will move the target to down. So these two will be at same place, right? These two are mandatory, target and retention. The remaining all are optional. So which are mandatory, I will put them in the red color. Okay, so the which is marked in the red color, you can consider them like mandatory, right? And which are not marked red color, you can think like they are optional. Okay, so based on the requirement we will use. Okay, I ping you this link. Okay, this is the best documentation provided by the Oracle. I'm pinging on the chat. When you get time, just have a look. Okay, yes. Okay, so this is how we must use this predefined annotations. All are till now whatever we are discussing, those are available with Java itself. Java. So it's time to write one custom annotation and use it and process also, right? Not only declaring, we need to get the data. For example, look at this example, just one. So here we have an annotation, author, right? So we are keeping this on top of class, we are keeping this on top of variable, we are keeping this on top of method. So how many restrictions how many run types we added? What is a runtime we need to add to allow them on top of class? Type, right?
Source
Type.
type.
The second one, field level, field. Method level, not use method, right? And yeah, this is some data which we are reading, right? So some data we are passing, right? So who wrote this method, right? Who wrote this variable? So who is the author and what is the version we want to see? So let's open this, right? Without opening itself, we can say okay at run type. So saying that type field method and at retention policy runtime. Retention policy runtime, right? At a target type method field, right? Retention policy runtime. Okay. So it is also possible to add default values, right? You can write an annotation something like this, okay, without any parameters. This is called marker annotation. So if it is also possible to assign some properties like author, version, okay. So you can also assign some default values, right? Like some people don't do an author, right? So some people don't provide author name, or some people don't provide version. So that time, what is the default value you want to have, right? So when it has a default value, it is also possible to skip that value while defining it, right? So this is also some places it is possible just because of this default. Just because of this default. Okay. So when you specify default, this becomes optional. If you remove default and if you remove default, then try to use it, then you will get in a compilation error, right? So the version should be mandatory, right? Version should be mandatory. Now author become optional, but version should be mandatory. Okay. So while writing annotation, you must know what is optional and what is mandatory. Okay. So here I'm making both are optional. I'm making both are optional. Okay. Yeah. So in test1.java, I'm just using this annotation. It's very simple, right? Public at interface. You can right click on your package, new. You can say annotation or you can say interface class. Just change change it to at interface. At interface. Okay. But when you add at interface, make sure you add at a target, at a retention, at target, at a retention. Okay. So this is how we're gonna declare our own annotation. Okay. And you can define, you can write marker annotation or you can write parameterized annotation, and you can make few parameters optional, few parameters mandatory by using default keyword. Okay. And whenever you use something like this. Okay. So if you just go to author and remove this type, what will happen? You'll get a compilation error saying that, okay, at author is not allowed on class level. Right? At author is not allowed class level. So this author annotation is not disallowed for this location. So when you add target type, then only will be allowed on top of your class. Okay. Still it looks easy, right? Writing an annotation and writing target, retention policy, parameters, making them optional, using those annotations are pretty easy. But I wanted to process this data, right? Using an annotation is easy, but I wanted to process, right? Some configuration information we are processing, we are writing. I wanted to take this information and put it in a table, right? Processing annotation. That is not that much easy. Okay. Using an annotation, writing an annotation is easy, but processing annotation is little difficult. Little difficult. Okay. So you have to be little focused here. So, but before jumping into the topic, right? I wanted to read. I'm going to read the data, right? Name property, name field we have, right? From name field, I'll okay, by name test1, I will say okay, this is written by James. Okay, And by looking into this say hello method, okay, I will say that, okay, this is written by Uvin and the version is 1.0.1. Okay, so that is what is a processing annotation. So till now we wrote our custom annotation and we used it, but how we gonna process is little complicated. But before we gonna discuss about that. Any questions here?
No, sir.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Today is what you're gonna learn is you're gonna see now. Okay. The climax, more like most difficult part in movie, right? Okay. So, but before going into the topic, you know, right? There is a conflict called reflection. Java reflection. There is a package also available in Java called java.lang.reflection, right? Method, class, class, all these are present inside java.lang.reflect. Okay, java.lang.reflect. Yeah. So we have field class, constructor class, executable class, right? We have a parameter class, right? Method class, and somewhere we will have package class also. Run a package. Somewhere I saw package also. Let me check. Oh, it's available in java.lang. Okay, package class, right? So all these classes. So we have very few classes in reflection, not a big topic, right? See, a method, field, constructor, right, and this one type variable. So can somebody say why do we use reflection in Java?
Like to get the class names or variables name runtime without passing the actual class name. Like it's kind of getting the class level details, class details or method details runtime.
Yes. Okay. There are so many. There are so many. There are so many use cases we have for Java reflection API, right? So it's like most dynamic way of doing the coding. So where we use more, like where we go for the reflection. For example, if you don't use the reflection, means which is a static way of coding, right? You do write a class, you do write a method, right? You do call setter that set value, getter that get value. But when you go for reflection, the number of lines of code which we write is going to drastically reduce. Okay, it's going to reduce it drastically, but it's like most dynamic, right? We don't say the method name, we don't say the class name. So it's going to be mostly dynamic, mostly dynamic. Okay, so look at this method class. Look at this method class. So for every method inside your class, for example, go to object class, which is Java class, right? Or Java.lang object, which is a root parent for all the objects in the Java. So this has like around 15 to 14 methods it has. So each method, right? For example, get class, not only predefined Java, any class you are writing, any class, right? Any class you are writing, each method declaration is an object of method. Okay, each method declaration is an object of method. So if you wanted to do process this method dynamically, right? You wanted to do some change for this method dynamically, dynamic process, we do use reflection API. Okay, so every method in your class is an instance of method. Okay, so to get that method, for example, I want to get this method information, right? I want to get the method information of this class, right? So what you have to do, you have to define object.class. Okay, you will get an instance of class, right? You object dot class, then you will get instance of class. On this class you have get methods. Okay, get methods, or get methods. If you know the method name, you use get method. If you don't know the method name, you can use get methods. Okay, so for example, you want to get a method which is the get class, then you can call, right? So the signature looks something like this. Okay, object dot get class dot get method, and what is the method name? Get class, and what parameters it's gonna take? It's a getter, right? It won't take anything, right? It won't take anything. Then the parameters are variables, right? You can pass. You no need to pass. Depends upon your requirements, right? You will get an instance of method. So this instance is going to have the complete information of get class method in object class. Okay, it's going to have full information, right? See what are all the methods are present in method class. Okay. Okay, so there is too much. What are all the modifiers are present, and what is the name of the method, and if the method has any annotations, right? What is the return type? Okay, you can also check whether it is a native or not, right? There is a lot of information can be taken from that method. Okay, so a class has 10 methods. For example, if you wrote a class which has 10 methods, then all the 10 methods are nothing but 10 method instances. Each method will be considered as a method object. So this is the object of method class, right? So you can say, okay, dot get return type, right? By don't looking into the, if I don't know what is the return type of get class method, but still we can know by using this method, right? Return type, and you can print the return type on the console. Okay, so mostly when you write the most dynamic code, right, the runtime processing code, we do write reflection. Okay, but this is little cost effective, and it consumes little processing time also. It will be little more than the static way of doing the things. Okay, so that's why we don't use reflection mostly in our code, but sometimes we may need to use, especially when you want to process annotations, right? So just now I said, right, there is a method available. What is that? Get annotation, right? Get annotation or get annotation. Get annotations also would be there. So get annotation, right? So if a method has any annotation, then you will come to know by using this method. Okay, so if more than one annotation is there, then you have to call get declared annotation. They will get, then you will get an array of annotations. Then you have to process one by one. As I already said, this is a little complicated concept. Okay, processing annotations is not that much easy. Okay, so first you must take the class. For example, right now, what is our class? Test1, where we used annotations on test1. So first you get the test class, right? Test.class. So once you get the test.class, then you can check, is this class has any annotation? Is this class has any annotation? So if you know, okay, this class is annotated with author, then you can call this method. Or if you don't know what annotation it has, then you have to say get the declared annotations. So it's going to return an array of annotations, Then you have to iterate each array. Okay, so why we are discussing this topic, because tomorrow when we jump into Spring, we do use most of the annotations. If you don't know how the annotation is going to be processed, then you may understand, right? Don't understand like few core concepts of Spring. You are using annotations, but you don't know how that is going to be processed, then it is not a good thing, right? So you must know how the annotations are processed, So we know, right? So for now, the test1 has an annotation author. I'm just directly calling the get annotation. If you don't know what annotation it's going to have, then you have to use the first method, get declared annotations, and you have to loop that iteration. You have to loop that iteration. Once you get the annotation, you can get the information. So once you get the annotation, it is already annotation. Once you get the annotation, then what you can do, you can call those methods which are present on that annotation. Okay, once you get the annotation, what you can do, you can call those methods. For example, my author has author method, version method, so you can call those methods, and whatever you wanted to do. For example, you want to put them in the DB, you can put them for like maintaining history, right? For example, all our SCM or Git, right? So how they gonna log this information? Who is doing what change? So they would have been doing something like this, right? So every modification, you take it and log it on the database, right? Who is writing which field? You will be knowing it. Okay. So if the class has any annotation, can be written like this, and you can check whether this is instance of author, and typecast it, then you can call the author method. So the same thing, even it's applicable for methods also. First I must get the object of method, right? Say hello method object I should get. On the method object I should call get annotation, then I will get author annotation information. Then I can print who is the author of this say hello method and what is the version of that say hello method. So first I print the class annotation information. Next I print method annotation information, and finally to print the field, right? For example, look at this author code. So the field is a, sorry, not author, test one. The field is a private field, right? Private means you can't directly access it, right? So when the field is private, you cannot access that outside. So what you should do first, you must get the field and change the scope, set accessible true. Excuse me. So when the set accessible true, then only you can access the data which is associated to that field. Okay. So even though the field is private, what you can do, you can still get the value of name. How? By using reflection API. Okay. And you can print the data which is related to. So see here, till now we are doing typecasting, right? Till now we are doing typecasting. That is not required. You can directly convert that into author, and you can just directly start using it. Okay. Typecasting also not required. Okay. So this is how we usually process the annotations. Okay. So using annotation is pretty easy, right? Using annotations can be done by anybody, but processing annotation takes, it is a little complicated. Okay. So that's why we have annotation. Okay. Inside this java.lang.annotation package, let me open it. Target. So we have few interfaces also. For example, annotation, right? So every annotation must implement this annotation. Okay. This is one important thing, and another important thing is annotation element. Oh, might be control shift T. Let me open. Method is already open, right? Method is already open. So one more interface we need to focus, which is method extends executable number. Let's go to class. Annotated type. Yeah, annotated element. Okay, annotated element. Yes, there are most of the generic types, right? This class method are already implemented. This annotated element. This is present inside java.lang.reflect. Yes, annotated element. So all the classes are already implemented this annotated element. So that is the reason why we have this get annotation method. So from where we are getting this get annotation method, this is present inside annotated method. So all the reflection types, right? See, all the class, package, parameter, right? And execute constructor, method, right? So all these are executables is implemented. So constructor, method, right? Field, all those are already implemented, right? So I'm just accessing directly. So class dot get annotation, method dot get annotation, method dot get annotation, field dot get annotation. Where is this get annotation is present? This is present inside annotated element. So all this method, class, package, field, right? All those predefined reflection classes are already implemented this annotated element. So by using this annotated element only, we will come to know what annotations are present on that method or on that field, on that constructor, on that class. Okay. I joined back. Sorry, there was some power disconnect. Let me share my screen. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, Anuj.
Not clearly,
Yes,
but
Anuj.
Yeah, I'm just connected just using